My name is Sean Ness. I'm a director here at the Institute. Have been here for 16 years and welcome you to this overview of the IFTF Vantage offering. My colleague Rod Falcon, a longtime research director and leader at IFTF, will be my collaborator in this conversation and the main speaker. I'm here mostly for color commentary. But we'll provide an overview of IFTF Vantage. We'll open it up for some Q&A. This is being recorded, so for all the registrants who shared their details, we will be sharing a recording and follow up afterwards. During this conversation, we'll probably also refer to research reports, trainings, links, etc. And for anything that we mentioned that's linkable, we'll drop that into the chat. We will also tend to keep track of all those and share those after the fact in that follow-up email. So be on the lookout for all of that. Okay, so without further ado, we'll get started. Welcome to the webinar. Rod, if you don't mind, jump to slide 2. IFTF is a 50-plus-year-old research organization. We're a nonprofit based in Palo Alto, California, although our consideration and concerns are around the entire planet. So we're looking at all facets of the foresight around the globe. We conduct our own research. That's IFTF Vantage. We train people in techniques. That's IFTF Foresight Essentials. And we conduct custom research on behalf of organizations who are curious about very specific conversation around the future. Our mission is to create and help organizations become and people become future ready. We'll go to the next slide, and I think Rod's going to pick it up from here for a few minutes.
Yeah. So welcome, everyone. I wanted to share with you just how we define strategic foresight. So for us, some people call themselves foresight practitioners, futurists, strategic foresight, maybe trends watchers, health futures, food futures, whatever you call yourself. A lot of you are probably engaged in what we call strategic foresight. And for us, that's a process. It's a set of tools, it's processes, it's also mindsets around thinking about the future, but also making decisions under conditions of uncertainty. Strategic foresight for us is also about imagination and being able to see possibilities where none existed before. So we encourage people to bring imagination and foresight together. And thinking about the future is really useful for really a lot of different reasons. For organizations, I think it's really important because it helps challenge our assumptions about what we're doing today will continue to be the way of the future, or that will be the primary way that it will continue working. Thinking about the future also helps bring people together to create a shared long-term perspective. And it also can help you and your organization anticipate long-term threats, long-term opportunities. But a lot of this is really from an organization's point of view, looking for strategic opportunities. So those areas that are going to bring more value to your customers, are going to make your organization more resilient. So a variety of factors could make a future strategic. I think overall, the probably core value proposition of strategic foresight is really around this concept of preparation. Thinking about the future helps people and organizations for future possibilities. A lot of the work that we're doing is looking for signals. So we always like to invoke the words of William Gibson. A big part of our practice is looking for the future in the present. So he said the future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed. It's a reminder, that the future is actually already here. So a big part of our practice is looking for signals, looking for those different possibilities, bringing those signals and imagination together to see, a wide range of possibilities. And that's really core to the practice of strategic foresight. I'm going to share with you 3 frameworks that I think bring together the core frameworks and mindsets to do this strategic foresight work. So one is really thinking about understanding that the future is not evenly distributed. We need to find signals, things that are emerging, things that could scale and have huge impact. So we're sharpening our focus, looking for those signals in the broader environment. That really helps us then really think about and define a wide range of possibilities. So this figure here is describing, as we're looking for signals, as we're working and imagining and trying to define different possibilities in your domain, your industry, your goal is to really look out on a 10-year horizon, and as wide as possible. What are all the full range? And so you're really entertaining things that may not obviously fit. So the scope of your horizon mapping may also include really high level, urgent futures that maybe seem outside of the scope of your organization, like wealth inequality, or for some, even climate was for the longest time outside of the scope of their strategic horizon. But the goal here is to really work through a process of moving from a broad range of possible futures and narrowing that down from plausible to probable to ultimately preferred futures. These are futures that you think are really going to disrupt your industry, your organization, maybe in a positive way, or maybe in a really way that really challenges your role or your organization's role in its market. The other framework we call foresight to insight to action. Once you've explored all that wide range of possibilities and maybe identified some preferred futures, we organize a range of workshops, processes that really follow this. You work with that foresight and you think through with a group of stakeholders, what are the insights? And those insights are threats and opportunities, and really talking about those, identifying those, sorting those, prioritizing those, and then moving to the next step, which is all about action. So if you're going to anticipate the future, you need to do something about it, and doing something about it is in the form of action, right? So there's no point in anticipating the future unless we're going to take action today. So this is that foresight, insight, action framework. Now, the next really framework when you're thinking about strategic foresight is this framework of 3 time horizons. And really, I don't have a lot of time to go through it today, but a lot of organizations think, okay, we've identified actions, but a big part now is really thinking through those actions through the context of your organization. Most organizations are considering Horizon 3 possibilities that are really stretching markets, stretching the possibilities of talent. They're really, maybe speculative or far off. But a big part of strategic foresight is translating those speculative ideas to Horizon 1. Horizon 1 is really around your current operations, your current footprint in the marketplace. How's it impacting your products, services, and experiences? And maybe not all the impacts are clear. Maybe you don't have those capabilities to fully realize the opportunity that's on Horizon 3. So Horizon 2 is about innovation and investments. So what are the capacities that we need to invest in Horizon 2 that's going to pull Horizon 1 forward and line it up with Horizon 3? So we're going to share all this with you, but it's those frameworks that bring together, I think, the core mindsets of strategic foresight. One, really exploring the full range of possibilities, working through a process of foresight, insight, action, and then translating those actions in the context of your organization through Horizon 1, 2, and 3. We use these frameworks in a lot of webinars and workshops and advisory work. I'm going to let Sean talk us through these case studies.
Sure. One of our friends out there in the global food area decided at the management ranks to really build out their foresight capacity, their foresight team. So they began to hire and internally promote people to a foresight function. And in doing so, they realized we would like to get some coaching and advisory on how to build out the team and how it should be connected to the rest of the organization, some third-party perspective. So they asked us to come in to help with some training, to help with some visioning. Basically, it was the gel that brought together the visionary team that they've been creating and coalescing to inform the organization, the operations functions. So for that project, it was mostly around advisory and coaching to really build out and increase their foresight capacity at the team level as they engage with other functions within the organization. There's a technology company here in the Bay Area that's asked us to be that outside perspective of signals and thinking about where are things growing, where are things maintaining the status quo, and where are things kind of diminishing over time, and using signals as a way to provide content and data to inform their long-term strategy, which tends to be about 3 years out. But this is something that we've been doing for them for a couple of years, and we're just about to restart another phase for them. So it's this outside perspective to balance their internal perspective. There's another consulting firm out there that had decided internally and across their ecosystem that climate positivity was a focus point that they wanted to really zero in on. So if we move towards a more climate positive worldview, what does that mean for their own organization and how they engage with outside organizations? So we provided 2 levels of guidance for them in that project. And finally, innovation is closely tied to foresight. Foresight really informs what kind of innovation can happen. That entrepreneurial level, again, a couple slides ago where Rod was talking about the second horizon. So how does that third horizon, the visionary area, impact the entrepreneurial innovation side? So working with them to really think out what's possible and plausible, and helping them identify the preferred future so that they could build a plan of attack to get to that one was really valuable for them. The next slide goes into detail about a research study out of Europe written by a person named Rohrbeck. It's a pretty famous study within the foresight and futures thinking world. To put it down in a snapshot, off on the right, you see there a large number of for-profit organizations were surveyed, and those with a foresight function had 33% more profitability than those peers that did not have a foresight function, and they grew at 200% versus their peers. So for those in foresight who are looking to engage the finance folks, the people with the money, profit and growth tend to be 2 areas that are desirable. And from this study, it shows those with longer term capacities within an organization tend to be more profitable and grow faster. The next slide goes into just a reminder that it's much better to be surprised by simulation than being blindsided by reality. So this is a quote from our colleague, Jake Dunnigan, where if you can imagine a 10-year future, you can sit back amongst your team and just have a really thoughtful conversation about the best, the worst, the pros, the cons, what would we do, what would we not do, and go through that process. 2 years later, if that scenario that you discussed 2 years ago starts to play out or shows its head in society, you won't be surprised by it. Blindsided by it. You will have gone down that path of conversation before. So our suggestion is be surprised in a simulation, because it's a lot cheaper to do so, just to have a conversation, as opposed to not thinking through, if Russia invades Ukraine, what will the implications be? You could think that out years in advance. The Ukraine creates food for 600 million people on the planet. If that food can't get out, there are going to be consequences and domino effects. So just think through these things as they unfold. So we really want you to be surprised as opposed to be blindsided. And hand it over to Rod to keep the conversation going.
Great. What we wanted to do next, we've been describing IFTF, a lot of the tools and frameworks and mindsets, even some of the evidenced by Rohrbeck's article of the value of strategic foresight in organizations. And there's other resources that we can share with you. I now want to focus on IFTF Vantage. This is the primary way that organizations like yours partner with IFTF. It's a program where we bring together a lot of the resources, tools, frameworks to help you become a future-ready organization. So IFTF Vantage, we really view it as a partnership of future-ready organizations. It's made up of about 40 organizations that are engaged in collective sense-making. So sense-making about change. It is a partnership that helps prepare you and your organization to anticipate urgent futures. We do a lot of work to really think about what is your strategic horizon and how to work with it, how to define it. But most importantly, it helps you build a perspective on the next decade about what's changing to help you prepare for coming transformations. We have a wide range of companies and organizations, from corporations to governments to large nonprofits that are part of the partnership. Did you want to say anything about this slide, Sean?
Just that you can see the whole gamut of kind of organizations that we work with. It's not just one specific vertical. There's a lot of different varieties of organizations that are thinking systematically about long-term futures. And unfortunately, we're not allowed to show every organization due to some contractual clauses in our agreements. But just know that there's a lot of different organizations that we have worked with and worked with that you all are well familiar with. So it's very, very common for us to have familiarity on a topic when it comes our way based on some engagements we've had with these organizations in the past. They all support Vantage. Most of them also enlist us to help with their training efforts and custom research efforts. So Vantage is one of the three main things that we do with many of these organizations.
Mm-hmm. This is something I said, and we can skip that. But I will say, I really do think foresight and imagination comes together. Our colleague, Jay McGonigal, just wrote another book, and it's on this connection between imagination and strategic foresight. So we'll put a link into that because I think that's also a good resource for those of you that are interested in looking more directly at that link between imagination and foresight. But here I want to talk to you more specifically about IFTF Vantage itself. And like I said, what we've done is really brought together all of what we offer to help you and your organization become future ready. And what the Vantage program offers, we've created what we call foresight councils. These are groups that meet and are engaged in what we call collective sense making. So imagine a group of peers that are focused on different topics or domains. We have foresight councils focused on technology. We have one that'll be focused on our colleague, Bob Johansson, who just wrote a book that'll be coming out called Office Shock, really looking at the whole issue of the future of work and officing and where that's going. We'll also have one that's focused on food futures and food innovation. So these are peer groups that are offered as part of the Vantage program. We're also now including training. So one of the other programs of IFTF is Foresight Essentials. Some of you said you are alumni of that course. We all teach those courses, but we're bundling in 2 seats to the flagship trainings, either in the general training. There's one specifically on design futures and another one on scenario planning. Every year we issue out a map of the decade. This is focused on content and forecast that we see as an organization when we look at the next 10 years. So partners get early releases and frameworks and tools to work with these forecasts. We also have a signals platform that we call Future Factors. And this is essentially a database that's curated of signals that different researchers are seeing across Their areas of research and investigation, but also other partners like yourselves are adding signals. And it's really a great resource when you're starting a foresight project. Part of the program also includes access to Vantage Point, which is our community hub. You'll have access to all of our past 10-year forecast and content, tools, webinars like this, PowerPoints, videos. So a lot of the resources that I think foresight professionals need as they're building projects, strategic foresight projects inside their organizations. You also get a foresight guide that helps you navigate all of these tools and resources. It also helps connect you with researchers and other experts that are part of our network. The program also has a schedule of webinars that aren't focused on sales, but more specifically on tools. As part of Vantage, you'll be invited to all of those. And then Vantage also includes invitations to our annual 10-year forecast. It's a IFTF-wide summit where we bring researchers from across and experts from the organization and really explore the future forces that are shaping the next decade. So together, all of this really helps organizations do a couple of things. More importantly, it's really all kind of under this idea of preparation and helping you and your organization become future ready. We believe you can do that by building two things. One, the capacity in futures thinking, training, frameworks, ways to kind of learn how to structure projects. And then secondly, really building a perspective, a strategic perspective on what's emerging over the next 10 years. What are the urgent futures that I need to pay attention to? So Vantage program really helps build capacity in both of those areas. And that's Vantage and IFTF. I think we're going to open it up for questions, and we'd be happy to answer any that you have.
Yeah, we have a few questions that I see that are pulled in. Mark has asked, what is climate positivity when most things climate appear very negative?
Yeah. So climate positivity was the theme of our map of the decade just, I think, 2 years ago. We were really looking at you're right, it is a very dire, dark, very urgent future. And we had been realizing for some time that if you're going to build a forecast, and especially if you're going to consume someone else's forecast, if it is not addressing climate change, it is an incomplete view of the future. So that was one big insight that we've had across the organization. So really all of our forecasts and all of our programs are addressing climate change. That's kind of the new reality as we're thinking about really any time horizon moving forward. The other thing is we realized that there were a lot of organizations that they may have a long-term horizon as they're looking out in the future, but the scope of their strategic horizon didn't include climate because they really didn't see themselves as an actor. Maybe there wasn't sufficient regulation to really get them to act in a different way. So we were seeing that there really is a range of organizations that are trying to address climate change, all the way from climate deniers to really climate leaders. And so what we're trying to do in that project is really show this evolution and spectrum of really how do you move your organization from, if it's not part of your strategic scope, how do you move up this scale to really be a leader in this space? So it's bringing together signals and forecasts and really focus on how organizations are doing this. And I think part of part of that map is in the public domain. So we can add it as a resource when we send the email out.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks, Rod. Another question from Tiffany is, can you tell us more about the Foresight Councils? Who can participate? How frequently will they meet?
Yeah, Foresight Councils are open to Vantage partners. And Vantage partners can participate in any and all of the Foresight Councils. There are limits just for designing engagement and facilitation. So what we're doing is canvassing for interest and seeing which organizations are interested in which Foresight Councils. And depending on interest, an organization can belong to all of them as long as there's room. But we will be limiting it. So no more than 3 seats and from any organization in a single Foresight Council. But we're also going to be looking at where there's demand, and I'm guessing that the one on technology and media might exceed space, so we may at that point consider starting a duplicate or a second Foresight Council on the same topic. But the important thing is to keep it at a scale where we can encourage and learn from each other and have conversation. A big part of it is learning from peers and learning how other organizations are engaged in technology forecasting, for example. So, yeah.
Perfect. Well, Rajesh is just dropping for his next call just as we're about to answer his question. So we can definitely answer it here, but also follow up directly with you, Rajesh.
Thanks, Rajesh.
The question is, how is the Foresight Essential training different from the Futures Thinking course on Coursera? So there's a few Coursera courses that are primarily designed and developed by our colleague Jane McGonigal. Know that the Coursera courses are mostly geared towards people who are interested in personal futures, not organizational futures. With that said, a lot of that training can be pivoted or used for organizational futures. So many people start off there, and if they see a desire to do more at the organizational level, they often reach out and engage us at the Foresight Essentials level with one of our 3 offerings there, which is our key course, which is also named Foresight Essentials. There's a scenario building course, and there's a design futures course. These courses are online or face-to-face. Pre-COVID, they were all face-to-face. During COVID, we pivoted quickly to online, and now as the world's opening back up, we're trying to satisfy people who still want that online engagement, lacking travel and want to be near their family, not have to go to another destination. But for those who do want to travel, we have upcoming courses that are face-to-face. So we'll I see Joanne put into the chat details about Foresight Essentials, but we'll have that in a follow-up conversation. And if you are still there, Rajesh, just know that we'll reach out to you directly about all that. It's 9:31, so those who need to go to another conversation, thank you for being here. Again, we're going to mail stuff out. I see at least one more question here, so if you want to see one more response or two to the questions that have been asked, feel free to stick around. This one is around something that was mentioned earlier, the war, the ongoing pandemic and the war in Ukraine, the disruptions that it's caused. How can we move from a now focus to a next focus? We for a long time, we're just focused on the what's happening now. The pandemic is happening, the war is happening. So how do we get out of that right now focus and get beyond that?
Is that for me?
Yeah, that's for you. Sorry, Rod.
I think one of the things that I've learned in doing this work is that a lot of this work really requires what I started calling temporal gymnastics. I think a lot of people think that this work is simply thinking out 10 years out. and that's really the focus of futures work. It's part of it. A big part is translating that in a meaningful way to stakeholders to support decisions in the present. So I do think first I would answer is that when you look at that slide of mindsets of the organization, there's that speculative Horizon 3. Horizon 1 is more focused on the present. Horizon 2 is more focused on those innovation spaces that are aligned with Horizon 3 and pull Horizon 1 forward. For me, it's that kind of thinking is really important rather than saying we're short-term thinkers or our horizon is only 3 years and that part of the organization is thinking 10 years. We all need to think across that full spectrum of horizons and time, and that temporal gymnastics is part of a futurist toolkit and thinking. With respect to, I think the pandemic, I do think, look at California rates. People are not being careful. So they think it's over. But, I do think there's all these sort of, people are tired of talking about the pandemic. There's just a lot of fatigue. But I think the dynamics are still playing themselves out. So we can't lose focus and attention on those dynamics. So for example, I was just reading today for another project, of all things, here's a signal that didn't fit. And I thought, what does this really mean? So apparently now we have a shortage of veterinarians. There aren't enough veterinarians in this country to address all of the needs of pets in this country. Why is that even happening now, and why is that important? And a lot of sort of the underlying reasons kind of come back to the pandemic. A lot of people are spending time at home, now had time for pets, also got to know their pets more, saw that they had issues, were taking them to the vets. That was one factor. Another piece is that this big sort of shuffling of the workplace, and a lot of people left veterinarian work and being vet assistants because now McDonald's pays more than what they were getting. So there's just all these disruptions in the labor market that are also kind of playing out this dynamic, and it's just sort of one scene of the dynamics that are still playing out post-COVID or whatever we want to call it. And I think as part of, being looking at someone that looks at change in the future, we can't keep our eyes off of these dynamics, because the reality is that the impacts of COVID will play themselves out for a very long time. My colleague Kathy Vion, who did our forecast on the post-COVID future, and that's available on our website. But one of the insights that she found out looking at the last big pandemic of the Spanish flu is that the impacts rolled out over decades. And so I do think we're going to be talking about the impacts and connections of COVID for years and years to come.
Another question from Caroline. What are the terms and conditions of the Vantage membership? Is there a fee? Are there any human or technical resources required? So the short answer is IFT Vantage is geared towards a corporate audience. Fees are set at $50,000 per year, and participation on resource requirements on the other end would be, we need a primary contact to be that conduit, the voice to the greater community. But know that Caroline will send you full details separately in the email, and there will be a link to the full details, deliverables, fee structure in the follow-up email that we send out. But we have a Foresight guide that's holding the hand of those new to Foresight and slowly acquainting you with the world of Foresight and how to use all the deliverables within IFTF Vantage. So we have kickoff calls and ongoing communication with those folks who are partners within the IFTF Vantage offering. Ali asks, how does one begin curating a database of trends and trajectories that reflect reality? And I'll start by saying one of the deliverables within IFTF Vantage is IFTF Future Factors, which is a database of signals. Last time I checked, we had roughly 6,500 signals that were being curated by IFTF staff as well as participants within the IFTF Vantage community. So there's already a database that exists of these curated signals that looks at the what, the so what, and then there's room for conversation and voting for those signals that are deemed relevant and important and causing conversation. We also have a feature that allows you to do private signals gathering in specific things called boards, where you can do one-off project-based signals gathering, where you can pull in from the greater body of signals or add your own signals that are independent of that greater group. And I think, did we get all the questions? I think we did. So we're at 9:38, and I think what we'll do is just wish you all a wonderful rest of your day, afternoon, evening, wherever you are on the planet. And again, we'll have a follow-up within the next couple of days with the recording and all the links that we shared. Know that we're a resource for you. You can reach out to us at any time, and we hope to see you in the future.
Thank you.